Oh hey, it's Wes, and today I want to talk about a couple newish lights. I've taken way too long to get around to reviewing these. However, that's always kind of a good thing because that means these have been banging around in my bags for several months now, and I have an even better understanding of how they work and how well they work. So let's get right into it. The Weeylite Ninja 200 and 300. Slightly confusing names, and we'll explain that real soon. Let's do this. So the Ninja 200 and 300 look almost identical. We've got one here, we've got one here. They are, for all intents and purposes, pretty much the same body of light, which makes things a little bit easier for us here. I was originally going to make a different video for each of them, but it just seems too redundant to get into that. So let's get in deep. The 300 is a COB LED that is fixed at 5600K, and this can output 80 watts of light. And then the 200, which is right here, is a COB LED that has a dynamic color balance that allows you to adjust it from warm to cool. But that only has 60 watts. Same body though, very similar amount of light. Let's start with the categories. As always, we'll get into the build quality. As you can see here, these are very metallic, at least in the main part of the body. Then around to the back, we have plastic. In the front, on the mount, unfortunately, the mount is plastic. That's a bit of a shame. You don't really want to mount things into plastic for the most part. The arm that it mounts on, all metal, very rigid. The rotation mechanism is quite sturdy. Again, we've got a metal knob, some nice rubber, some nice grippy teeth in there that help it to be locked down real tight. One oddity between the two is that they come with very different power supplies, even though the power output of these is quite similar. So for the 300, we have this massive brick. We've got the DC end here, which is about 4 or 5 feet long. Then we've got the AC end here, which is a lot longer. It's probably 10 feet. Then if we look at the power supply that comes with the 200, it's just this. That's all, just a wall wart. And attached to the wall wart, you got about 12 feet of thin DC cable. Now, I probably don't need to tell you, but one of these is way more convenient than the other. It's this one. Got no dirty dangler. This thing can reach all the way up a light pole no matter how high you have it. You gotta have a pretty long light pole for it to be too short. And even then, you can easily just plug this into a 2-prong extension cord. And also, it's a modular design, so this can operate on 100 to 240 volts. Very convenient. You want to use the power supply that comes with it with the recommended amount of power. These do come with these fantastic boxes, these cases. There's a little cap, just the right size, very, very small, well made, and an enormous case. Look at the size of this thing. Very padded. It's got dividers, it's got zippers, it's got handles, it's got shoulder strap mounts. I'm not gonna lie to you, I never used that case. Look how small this light is. It is a very small light. That is a gigantic case. I just throw this light in my bag with my light stands. I don't know if that's the best idea, but I did want to know whether or not these would hold up, and they did. So overall, I was going to give this a 6 out of 10, but since I've been using this for so long and nothing is broken, and I do not take that careful care of them, because again, I just throw it in a box with my light stands, in a bag with my light stands, so I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10. Moving on to the next category, feature set. These are reasonably well-featured lights. One of them has adjustable color balance, one of them does not. So that is a missing feature from one. They have Bluetooth connectivity with a very simple app. Let's turn this thing on. Yep. As you can see, assign groups, A, B, C, or D. I have this set to group A. I can adjust the power output. Since this is the 200, I can also adjust the white balance from 8500K all the way down to 2500K. Now the funny thing is, if I use this app with the 300 that doesn't have adjustable color balance, that slider is still there, which is a little bit misleading. Then in the app, there's an HSI mode, again, not applicable to this light. Then there's a scene mode, which most LED lights have these days, and unfortunately, this one is not that useful. Let's go to the flame mode and turn it down to minimum. it's very jumpy. The light levels are highly stepped. There's not, for all of these effects, it just kind of pop, 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 jumps all around. They're not fantastic effects. But it is in there and it's super easy to use. The app, I like that. If you're gonna put an app on, it's gotta be easy. One feature that this is unfortunately majorly lacking is a standardized mount. This just has their own teeny tiny plastic mount. So if you want to put a Bowens light on this, you have to get their separate adapter, which is surprisingly expensive because it just looks like another piece of plastic that you put on this piece of plastic. And there is no umbrella holder built into this arm, so we're missing that too. So overall, this becomes very difficult to modify. We'll talk about that more in usability and light quality. So overall, for the feature set, we're going to say that the 300 gets a 7 out of 10, but the 200 gets an 8 out of 10 for the adjustable white balance. Let's move along to light quality. These boast a CRI of 95 and a TLCI of 95. That is not exactly industry leading these days, but these are a budget light, so that's not shocking. But there are other budget lights that do better. As far as power output goes, we have about 60 and about 80 watts. That's decent for a light of this size. It's quite compact. If we compare this to, say, the Godox ML60, this has more than 60 watts of power. And at first glance, it appears to be smaller, just because it has a deceptively small form factor. But when you actually put them right next to each other, the Godox, honestly, is only like 20% smaller at most. My favorite feature of this, right here, is the battery caddy. This allows you to hook 2 batteries to it, and you need to have both batteries to function. And these are the standard Sony F-mount batteries. And there you go. Now this is a battery-powered light. Except not quite that simple. I would really have liked there to be an internal connection to this battery caddy, because you actually have to take a wire and plug it from one end to the back. That's a little bit janky. But then you have a light that's battery powered, and it's easy to swap these batteries out, no biggie. And I've used these at several weddings now, where at reception venues, when I'm videoing a dance, I don't have nowhere to plug in. No big deal. That's fantastic. I like how easy that is. The batteries lock in place, which has its ups and downs. And an interesting function of this battery caddy is it can actually be used as a charger as well. If you look on the side here, there is an in and out switch. That's for power in or power out. And so if you put power in, you can then plug this into a charger. You see there's a USB-C input here that will allow you to put power in and charge your batteries. It's not a very fast charger though. But then again, most NPF battery chargers are not fast, which is a bit of a gripe of mine, but that's besides the point. Now with the lack of a built-in Bowens mount, that makes this a little difficult to adapt and modify your light. The ML60 didn't lose quite as many points for that because there's a Godox mount, which you can get softboxes for, but it's not as easy. But you can also stick this easily in the S2 bracket, which is very common and very cheap. But then there are comparable lights, such as the Sokani X60 series, which is honestly smaller, and it has a full Bowens mount on the front. So it's something that can be done. So overall for light quality, not the leading light spectrum and not the easiest to modify, but still it is solid. It's a 7 out of 10. Usability. One thing that bugs me the most about both of these lights is the power output range is extremely limited. Yeah, you can go from 1% to 100%, but that has nothing to do with the actual amount of light you're producing. At 1%, you're kind of at about half the light as 100%. With this, the Sokani X60, look at how dim that LED is. That is fantastic. Now that's not useful for all situations, but sometimes you don't need a lot of light, such as at a wedding reception. When I turn this down to 1%, which I do every time at a wedding reception, it is still blinding. And this is a problem for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's blinding and it's brighter than we need it to be for the exposure, but also, since you can easily run this on battery, I'd get a lot more battery life if I could turn it down more. But instead, I have a blinding amount of light in that sort of scenario, and I'm burning batteries faster than I need to be. Whereas this one, although there's no easy way of attaching a battery caddy to it, it gets so incredibly dim. So anyway, that's my personal gripe, might have no effect on you whatsoever. The screen on the back is pretty bright, pretty easily visible. Off-axis isn't fantastic, so if, say, it's at the top of a light stand or something, it's a little bit hard to see, but overall, it's a pretty good screen. The light stand foot it's finicky. I don't know why, but when I put it on a more robust light stand, it does not want to come off. This is supposed to be firmware upgradable. As you can see, there's a USB-C port at the bottom here, but I have no idea where you should find those firmware updates because Weeylite doesn't really have a standard English website for me to search on. All I can find is these lights on the Viltrox store. Now, maybe if I contacted the company, they would send me something, but I feel like it should be easier to find than that if it is a possibility. It's a whole lot of stuff, super easy to use, somewhat versatile, nice and compact, but it has a few gotchas. I'm gonna give that a 7 out of 10 for usability. Value, and that is where we expect these to excel. So we have two price points here. For the 200, which is less power, but has adjustable white balance, we're looking at $240. So what else do we have in that category? We have the Sokani X60 RGB. That one right there is only 180 bucks. You can do adjustable white balance or you can do full RGB. Then there is the bicolor version of the ML60. That's $300. It's more. Colbor has the CL100 for $200. Godox has the SL100 bicolor, like this, except with more than one color. And Amran has the 100X bicolor for $250. So the price of this one isn't fantastic. It's kind of middle of the road at best. Then if we look at the pricing for the 300 though, it's a totally different story. This thing is just $170, which admittedly is only $10 less than the Sokani X60. So that has its ups and downs. Then there is the Godox ML60 again. $270 if you don't get the bicolor version, a little bit less. Then Sokani has the X60 V2, which is just a straight light, not RGB, $170. I don't really know why someone would buy that over the RGB because that one's such a good deal. And then, again, there is the Godox SL100D, which is daylight. This is $180. And it also has a Bowens mount on the front. So overall, this one at $170, not this one. This one, the 300 at $170, is the best price you can get for this amount of light in this kind of form factor. So for the Ninja 200, we're looking at a 6 out of 10 for value, not amazing. But for the 300, we've got a 10 out of 10 for value. Can't get any better than this pricing. Overall, what kind of scores do we get here? They're pretty close, but I have to give the 300 a 38 out of 50 because it's just so much more competitive overall. It wins those points back. And then the 200 gets a 35 out of 50. They're both somewhat flawed products, but a good deal nonetheless if it works into your workflow. Overall, if you do get one of these, I highly suggest getting it with the battery caddy and also in a package deal with the Bowens modifier. Because without the Bowens mount, these things are frustrating to use because you're just throwing light straight at something and you don't really have a choice. So that's kind of a shame. Let me know what you think of the Ninjas, and let me know down in the comments below. If you want to purchase one of these or one of these lights that we saw today, please use the links down in the description to help support this channel and feed my fat cats. I don't know if you noticed, but the cat's been in the video the entire time. And oh my goodness, these are annoying to get off light stands. There he is, just sleeping on a light modifier. All right, until next time, let's go take some photos.